Okay, you all good? Let's do it. Hello and welcome to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast. You're listening to the B2C Lead Gen Podcast. My name is Daniel Hopewell here with Simon Delaney, and this is episode 110, Answering Listeners' Questions. So a couple of weeks ago, I think it was maybe last week actually, we didn't release a podcast. So what we did was we put out a post on our LinkedIn channel, the Databowl channel, saying, have you got any questions you want us to cover on the podcast in upcoming weeks? So we did a survey and we've got a few responses. So we're going to work through these today. I'm not actually seeing these responses, so I just got a number. So these may be terrible questions, but we'll see what comes through and try and answer them.
How tall are you, and how big's your foot?
It's hard to tell from the face. So yeah, we'll see what happens. So I'm going to read these off type form directly. I'm going to put them to you, Simon, with no filter. So
I'm getting the raw, unfiltered questions.
You are, yeah.
Direct from source. Cool.
I think there's like 7 or 8. It was only last week we put it up, but if we get the same one 2 or 3 times, we might be in for a short episode, but we'll see. Okay, I'm ready. Question number 1. Best traffic sources. Best traffic sources. Where's the best place to get traffic?
Yeah, I get asked this all the time. No, I don't get it asked all the time. I got it asked on another podcast I was actually on a couple of weeks ago in America. Someone said to me, "Where's the?" And I don't, like, all traffic sources have their plus points, down points, good, bad, ugly, everything else, right? Like, it's quite difficult to answer what's the best traffic source. So obviously you have something like Google, if you're doing PPC or SEO and it's a direct search specifically for your product. So, I don't know, I need a plumber right now in Camden in London. And you go like, this is great, right? Because but otherwise, you're looking at native, Facebook, affiliates, all the different ways affiliates capture data, PPC, any other social network, whatever. So they all have varying degrees of differences, whether that's cost, the level of targeting, the amount of fraud and stuff that can be on there. But you always pay one way or another. Like, you can't escape. There's not like a best traffic source. It's like, it's either going to cost you a shitload, you're going to get more fraud than you ever imagined. You're going to be interrupting people's other business if they're on like Facebook scrolling through. So you might have a problem with volume or potentially quality. So it's quite difficult to answer what's the best source of traffic. Lots of people I know work with single sources of traffic. So there's, they'll just get leads from one specific source. If it's me personally, maybe not immediately, but when you're generating leads and are experienced in what you're doing, you want to try and spread your lead buying across various different sources, purely because you de-risk the volume, the price, fluctuations in quality from one specific source. So in the same way that you buy leads from lots of different lead generators, if you can, I'd try and spread your budget across quite a few different channels so that you don't get impacted in different ways. And then you can obviously do cross promotions between them, things. There's quite a lot of benefits in that. But if you would say to me, what is the best source of traffic? Really difficult to answer. The highest intent one is obviously like a direct search or something like that. But the reality is they all work and don't work in their own ways. And they all come at a cost. You can't escape that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to answer that question without a little bit of context. Like,
yeah,
it depends on the person. Like,
and also, and it might depend on the vertical as well, and the products and you know,
Exactly,
who you need to target and stuff like that. It's quite, without more context, it's harder to dig into. So
Can't
that's
give
the
more
best answer we
context.
can give at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can just read you the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. I think we've covered some stuff there. The next one I've just also read, I think it's going to be kind of difficult. It's not really a question; it's just a statement. Help with setting up APIs would be useful. I don't know if they mean they literally want us to set their APIs up for them, or they just want some tips as how to do it. Can we do
help with setting up APIs? Is that the question?
it's not a question, but yeah, just it's actually got an exclamation mark. Just help APIs would be useful. Maybe that's just like a general thought because they've got. I mean, APIs are a pain in the ass, but if you're not used to doing it, but
so that, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a problem you find a lot with people that deal with data, especially in B2C lead gen. You can find it in B2B as well. Is they're not actually trained in like marketing operations. So it's not like they're used to front end development or used to potentially setting up APIs. And rather than thinking this is something I might need to learn, it's like APIs are a problem. When in reality, this APIs are a way to, you know, in this that what we're talking about is a way to just transfer data between two different entities. So yeah, I get it. They can be a pain. You know, there's all different types. There's some that require custom development. There's you know, post, get. There's different synchronous, asynchronous. There's ones that you just can't soap string. There's one that you can't set deliver to them. And this is why software exists like Zapier and Make, and there's a few of them. NAN, or however you're going to pronounce that, Nation. And they exist to try and solve this problem because a lot of people struggle with APIs. And it's quite difficult to give advice around them without, being given the API you have a problem with and going, okay, yeah, this is the thing. So dare I say it, at Databowl, for example, this is why we offer a managed service. So people pay us like either a set amount a month or an hourly figure because they have problems setting APIs up, and we'll go, just give it to us and we'll set it up for you. Because obviously we're well versed in how APIs work, and when you've been dealing with them for that long and work with front end developers or different people that can set them up, it becomes a lot easier. We do actually, whoever wrote that, if you're interested, on the Databowl YouTube channel, I think there's quite a few like how-to videos. I can't remember if APIs are in there just because they're so different, but maybe we could do one showing the differences between APIs and where they do. So it could be a good idea for that. But and this is quite difficult to do on a podcast, right? It's like, they can be difficult. You might need to be like trained in them as well, or pay other people to do them, or use a different system like Zapier to handle them differently.
Okay, so a few answers there. Get someone to do it for you, or get us to do it is one option. But let's go to the next one because this one is quite. It's just actually differences between front and back end verification. It's not something we necessarily, and we talk about verification a lot, but we don't always spell out the difference between the front and the back. So that's quite an interesting subject.
So front end verification is basically sitting on a form that the user visits, right?
So I'm just laughing because I've just seen the next question, but I'll come back to it.
All right. So and then the back end verification is the data's already been captured on the front end, and now it's come into a system or whatever, and you're going to verify it there. So what this really applies to is stuff like the level of intent of the user, and the traffic source that it's come from, and how you're going to pay for it. So if you're paying on a cost per click on Google, Facebook, whatever channels, you don't want to do back-end verification, right? Because you've already had to pay for the lead. Like, you've paid for the event to happen to generate this lead. So you want to try and do it on the front end. And what you're trying to do is, one, stop like Mickey Mouse stuff, right? Being entered. but you also don't want to make it too strict on the user. They end up like getting pissed off with it and not filling it in. What you're really looking for from them is accuracy, because you want them to input the correct email address, the correct telephone number, whatever details it's going to get. Because if they input something wrong, you've had to pay for that data, even if so there could be loads of intent behind it, and you've ended up with the wrong data anyway. What we do in that scenario, or what some of the setups our clients have, is on a form on the front end, if they're paying like on a CPC, and these are relatively high cost per clicks that they might be bidding on, or whatever, they'll set up a funnel on the back end that if they are capturing two different types of contact data, so that would be like telephone number and email address, if they find one of them is wrong, but one of them is right. So let's say a user inputted a telephone number but got a digit wrong. So they put like, I don't know, a 2 instead of a 1 at the end of their mobile number or something. And it's gone over to a call center to try and contact them. But they've spoken to the person. They go, it's Mr. John Smith, not Sally, whoever you thought it was going to be. They then email the user with another form, say, hi, we tried contacting you. We'd love to be able to speak to you now. We think we've got the wrong telephone number. Could you enter your correct telephone number here so that we can call you, or just email it back or whatever? They then input it, it updates the original lead, and then re-delivers it back into the call center. And they'll do the same vice versa on the SMS with the email if they can't contact the user, because then they can email them and ask for an updated email address. So this is why the level of intent applies, though, because if that lead is working out on a cost per click of like £100, you want to do absolutely everything possible you don't let that person go, because it's cost you an absolute shitload. Yeah. If it's some like winky wanky traffic and I don't know, it's going to cost you like 25p per lead, you might not want to think about setting these sort of processes up, but this is why the intent and the cost plays into it. And then you have something where you're paying for the traffic on a CPL. So this would be typically like affiliate networks, or it could be LinkedIn forms, for example. I think you can set up on a CPL, but let's focus on affiliate traffic. If you're buying those leads, you're buying them all on a CPL typically. And that is where you'd run the back-end verification as the lead buyer. So you could then verify all the data has been collected, because you can reject it and you're not paying on the cost per click up front. And as a lead buyer, you probably always run back-end verification on every lead that you get. If you're not collecting the data, just purely because accepting it is probably going to cost you a shitload more than rejecting it if the details are wrong. Yeah. You never know whether someone else has a problem or sent you some bad data or whatever. But that's really the difference between front and back end verification, and how you apply it.
Cool. I think it is a bit hard sometimes with these questions without knowing the context of what exactly they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good overall look at it. The reason I laughed a minute ago is I scrolled down too far, and I don't know whether this is a joke question or someone who has not listened to the podcast before, but you'll enjoy this one. Ping post to optimize value of leads. So I don't know whether it's they're not listening to the show properly, or they do it to wind you up. I don't know, but what do you feel?
It might be to wind you up. So ping posts to optimize the value of the leads. And that is the problem with ping post, right? Is to do with not giving value to the user. It's giving value to whoever's selling the lead.
This is a lead seller who's hadn't told you that, obviously, but
yeah, exactly. So, and that really is what I believe is the problem with ping post, is it's not focused on giving value or offering the best deal or the best solution or whatever to the person who is a lead. Its only interest is getting the highest CPL to the person selling the lead, regardless of whether the outcome is actually good or not to the person who is a lead. So I get the question, because as a lead generator, that might be what you want to think about, is selling the lead to the highest value. But I propose a different way of thinking about it, which is how can you offer the most value to the lead rather than thinking the highest CPL you'll get? Because I believe that if you work on that basis, it's actually far more lucrative in the long term, because you can build a far better relationship with the people who are the leads. You can build a brand and you can figure out ways to offer more value to them, because your impartiality as a lead generator is by far your biggest strength. And this is what I think is wrong with ping post. So what I would actually do, rather than use ping post in the form that it is now, is you've got a bunch of buyers. Just for anyone who doesn't know how ping post works. Sorry, someone's ringing me on Skype just as that was going off. You have a bunch of buyers, a lead generator collects a lead, they send a snippet of information off to the lead buyers that's relevant to them in some way. So it could be like, for example, the loan amount someone wants, their postcode and how old they are. And then all these people that can offer these loans bid on that lead. It's like an auction. And then they send back the cost that they'll pay. And the ping post mechanism sells the lead to the highest bidder. That's how it works. So it's basically like an auction for someone's data. But you've guessed it, folks. The problem with the auction is it typically goes to the person who's got like the highest interest rates. This is why ping post is traditionally used in the payday loans market. It's an incredibly filthy market anyway, that exploits people that are really vulnerable, and ping post is sort of spread out into other areas. So the way I'd handle it, and the way we have a couple of clients that do this, is they actually ping 5 clients, for example, or 3 clients, whatever it is. They get a response from them, which is, I think it's an interest rate. I'd have to double check, some figure. And they actually display that on the thank you page to the user, along with which company is offering that interest rate. So suddenly, this has moved from, we're going to sell this person's data to the highest bidder. Because bear in mind, this person whose data has no idea about this, right? They think they're going to get like a great deal, and this is something I can use to do whatever. But suddenly, you're now opening the kimono, showing them the companies that are bidding on their data, and showing the results of what that bid is. So you go, whatever it is, their interest rate is this, their interest rate is this, their interest rate is this. They can then have another link to the brand or show what the benefits are of working with them, whatever. And that offers real value to the user, right? Like suddenly it's now transparent. You can see the interest rates, if that's what we're talking about. You can see the deal, whatever, rather than you just selling someone's personal data to the highest bidder in a completely blind network that they have absolutely no idea about whatsoever, so that when they then get a deal, it's the worst deal they could possibly get. It just doesn't make, like, come on, it's 2023. We're dealing with people's personal data. Just doesn't wash. That's the answer.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a serious question or not, but we've covered it succinctly. So we'll move on, because I think this is actually a nice follow-on question in response to that. How to find good sellers?
So we've built products. We've done a podcast about it. We hyped it up big time, called Partner Hype, and we're still working on the product. The only reason we've not fully released it yet is we're just doing a load of internal testing. So we're running some campaigns and stuff on there in like a little closed environment to figure out all the mechanisms before pushing it fully live. So obviously, I'd always recommend using Partner Hype to find really good lead sellers. Outside of that, I'll tell you how you do it, because this is pretty much a similar sort of mechanism that you need to do. So a lot of companies work with brokers because they can't figure out who to work with, right, directly. And it can be easier in a lot of respects working with brokers if you're a company that requires like massive due diligence and whatever, because then you only have one company to deal with to fill all that out, rather than lots of different ones. If you're going to be looking for individual lead suppliers, you need to find absolutely everything out about them. You need to see all their sites. You need to find out typical ads they've been running. Ideally, if you can get referrals from current clients they've been working with, you need to complete a thorough due diligence document. You need to look into all their privacy statements. You need to see how they generate leads. You need to find out the mechanisms that they use to send you leads. You just need to see like current evidence of what they do and things like that. And I get it can be hard to find these people, but it isn't really. You could put a message out on LinkedIn and lots of people will approach you. The hard bit is knowing what to do with the information and what information to collect to find out who you're working with. And there is no secret source. No one does anything like particularly special other than they spend a lot of time thinking about how to generate leads really well or how to optimize them. And you'll know if you speak to someone like that because they'll be able to talk to you about it really in depth. Everyone generates leads the same way. Don't believe the hype. That's the way that you meet good lead sellers, and focus on, for me personally, focus on the quality, not the quantity. Don't go after low CPLs. Go after leads that are going to convert to sales or whatever the successful outcome is that you're measuring.
Cool.
There'll always be someone who will offer you really cheap leads.
We've got a repeat question. What do you think are the best sources of traffic? Literally answered that as the first one. So go back to the start of the podcast. The next one is, I don't think really we can answer this on a podcast. Would be great if you went into more depth about how to do some of ideas you discuss, e.g. Databowl walkthroughs, case studies, get guests to explain in detail how they've achieved X. Cheers. I don't know. Sorry, question. I don't know what we can do. I don't know what we can do for that. But...
Yeah, it's quite difficult to explain like walkthroughs and stuff of how to do stuff on a podcast. Again, we do have a YouTube channel where we go. There's some, I guess you call it marketing operations videos where we talk through how to achieve certain outcomes, and
you post this stuff as well quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then client case studies, there's some available on our website, actually. There's quite a few. There's actually videos of them talking about not necessarily how they've done it, but like what they've achieved, I guess. But what I think would be interesting, I don't know if this person's going to be listening to this, but I'd love you to reach out and then we could go into specifics, like literally talk through what you're looking to achieve or what it is that you want to know, because it's it's quite difficult at this moment to I don't know what it is either, like what
it's fake. I deliberately didn't ask people's names because I just kind of thought if I do that I get more responses, but follow up on this, and we're always looking for ideas for new content for the YouTube. So if someone's like, can you make me a video on this? We will happily do it because it gives us
drop me an email if you're listening to this, simon@databowl.com, and we'll hook up, it's the wrong word. I'll send you a link and we can have a call and we'll just go over whatever you want.
Just realized that one of the last questions is actually just me testing the form to make sure it works. So actually got one question now to end on. How would you handle affiliate fraud for lead gen? You sort of talked a bit about affiliates earlier, hints that way. You got some more depth of that before we finish this?
Yeah, so affiliate fraud for lead gen. I mean, we work with like a few affiliate networks, like some of the biggest in the world, and we run in conjunction with them their lead gen. So that this is I'll walk through how we handle stuff like affiliate fraud. So number one is and what we're talking about is we control the landing page, right? because we build the landing page, and on that landing page is all the front end verifications. We're just, looking at everything. Is it a real telephone number, email address, postal address, Mickey Mouse name, famous name, whatever, and we do that sometimes on the back end as well. Then we have reCAPTCHA that you can set the tolerance of. So it's to try and minimize bot activity. And what's great is because we control the landing page, because what bots will do to bypass reCAPTCHA, or they don't actually even know that reCAPTCHA is showing, they actually like inject the data behind the form, is the best way I can put it in a non-technical way. So imagine the reCAPTCHA is shown, but the data still gets submitted because it effectively like goes behind it. But when we receive the lead, we get that reCAPTCHA is not being filled in. So for us, it's like an immediate alert. There's a bot activity happening on this particular campaign from X source. So we then know like a bot is now attacking this page. We then do like IP fraud. So, there's lots of different products out there that do it. And we either put it on the front end on the click, or we do it at the lead level. If you do it on the click, you can get more information because it submits it along with the all the metadata of like from whence the traffic came. So you get, like the browser and blah, 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 whatever. But if you do it at the lead level, it's quite good because you actually, well, number one, it costs a shitload less because like rather than per click, you're just doing it per lead. But also similar to the reCAPTCHA, you can start to identify what you're looking for is seams of problems. So, like what typically happens when an affiliate page is being attacked is it like starts, and then, as long as you've started to identify the patterns of it, you can pick it up a lot easier. So what we'll then do is start looking at, like I just mentioned, the patterns in the data. So, for example, I think we've spoken about this before. Bots, they don't always, but a lot of the time they have a tell. Like there's a trail that's being left. And the same with click farms as well. So that's what we're looking for: click farms, bots, whatever. And it can be really weird stuff like, the pattern of the postcodes. You start to see similar patterns, and this is direct user input, and the chances of it happening like over and over again in that pattern is like just not going to happen. Or stuff like if you're capturing title and then first name, a bot might not know the gender of the name, and potentially a click farm if it's in a different country, and they just start putting like titles that just go with anything. So you end up with, like, in a really bad example where I know this isn't, we shouldn't talk about gender and everybody could be non-binary, but just for example, it could be like Mrs. John Smith, and you start seeing these patterns of data. So anyway, we might look into stuff like that. And then you get the first party data itself. So literally the data has been collected here at this point. We've rejected a shitload, hopefully got rid of a load of bots, started looking at the patterns of the data, verified all the leads. We control the landing page that the traffic's being driven to. We're tracking every single source at a really granular level, so from sub-source, so we can start to see exactly where the problems are coming from. Then the lead enters a lead management system, and what I'm talking about is going to be Databowl. Then we'll do any other verifications that can't potentially be done on the front end. We'll do all the qualification of the lead, the dedupe, the suppression, whatever else. Then we API it. If it's going, let's imagine it's going to a client, and we get their response of whether they accepted it or not. And only at that point, when the client accepts the first party data, does the pixel actually fire to accept the transaction ID. So what normally happens with most of affiliate driven traffic is the pixel sits on the landing page. So everything that hits it, the pixel fires. So at the end of every month, you end up with all these transaction IDs having to be shared between affiliate networks or whoever's been buying or selling the affiliate traffic. Whereas if you do it on the basis of like an API being accepted, you can remove all that shite at the beginning, and it reduces the amount of like bad pixel firing, I guess you'd call it. And then obviously, once the client gets it, it's then up to them to provide any returns. And then we look at the returns. So typically in the affiliate traffic world or any sort of lead gen, it's the 5th working day of the following month. You have to provide your returns, which in affiliate language is the transaction IDs that you're going to be rejecting, because it's all run by the networks and then they can reject it to their sub-affiliates. And then what you do is run a report and start looking at the levels of fraud, the levels of accepted, good, bad by every single sub-affiliate at granular level. And from that, you start to look at where you put your budget going forward, because you can start to see rich seams of performance. But that's how I'd handle it.
I think as well, you've sort of unintentionally answered the previous question, which we avoided. We went into more depth about some of the ideas you discuss, walkthroughs, etc. So we've sort of done that, although not necessarily in affiliate fraud, but we have.
It's quite in depth, but you can't. I know what like someone might mean is you can't see it, so it's quite. It's like imagine this is a video of the thing, and that's why I'm perfectly happy to do this with anyone that wants to see it, where you could literally just walk through step by step. This is why this happens. This is what this gets rid of. This is the problem this solves.
Well, I think we've done that. I think we could tick that one off too, so that's nice. So yeah, that was all. I think that was 7 or 8. Not too many duplicates there, only one duplicate. So yeah, some varied questions from people listening, which is pretty cool. I think maybe we should make this part 1, and then maybe in a month or 2 we'll put another survey out. And if you've listened to this one, you have any more questions you want to answer, now you know the sort of format. Hopefully you can post it, but keep an eye on our Databowl LinkedIn channel. That's where we'll post that survey. But yeah, hopefully we'll get some more questions. Cool. That was episode 110, answering listeners' questions. Thanks for listening to the B2C Lead Generation podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe to hear more from those at the very cutting edge of the lead gen world.